Hello and welcome to the House College Sports Show. I am Joe. With me is Kyle, as always, and we're here to recap the last week of college football, preview the next week of college football. And Kyle, for once, we don't have a Power Five coach being fired, so we don't have to talk about that right now.
It's a new week, a new day in college football.
Absolutely, we'll be talking about Auburn and Brian Harsin probably here soon, but we'll wait for that until it becomes official. But we thought we would start off the podcast with the college football playoff picks. We started with the preseason. Kyle, it still looks good for both of us. We had the same four teams, maybe different orders, but it's all semantics at that point. But same four teams looking good. I think the college football season's been exciting nonetheless. But Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson were kind of the four picks we both had, and I feel more confident about at least Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama if they have a healthy quarterback, and Georgia after Oregon. I feel good, but who knows at this point with what they've done since. But it's not the most, I guess, different college football season, but it's all right.
Feels like every other college football season, seemingly anyway. I brought it up briefly before we hit record. Yeah, we haven't talked about our top four yet, except that first week or two, and it's the exact same, and we haven't lost anybody, so that's probably part of why we just haven't felt the need. You mentioned it too. You're a little more confident in Clemson than you would have expected. I as well. I had always thought Clemson was going to bounce back. Everybody thought it was the end of Dabo because they had one bad season. I wouldn't buy in that yet. Bama actually has surprised me a little bit. Ohio State's what I expected. Georgia, a hiccup against Missouri, but that's about what I expected too from them. They lost a lot from that defense. So yeah, I mean, there's really no surprises yet. If I could ask you, if you had to pick one team that isn't going to make it, who do you take?
One team who's not going to make it out of the four we picked. I think Clemson, and that's just because that's who they were before, but they've already beaten the two best ACC teams outside of them already. So I don't know. That's what makes it tough. I think maybe another one-loss team maybe knocks them off, but if Georgia or Alabama loses one game, I think it hurts them less than if Clemson loses one game. In Ohio State, too, for that matter.
I agree. Yeah, if Clemson loses one, they're out. For the sake of not taking the same team, I'll take Alabama. I mean, they haven't looked good. It's been a trendy pick lately whenever they're going up against whoever it is. They haven't been really blowing anybody out yet. Bryce Young's had some injury. I think some of that undisclosed as well. I think he hasn't been fully healthy much of this season. So if there's one team, maybe it's Alabama, because if they do drop a game and there's not many left on the schedule, Tennessee, I don't think that's going to happen. Ole Miss, I don't think that's going to happen. I know I'm supposed to, but I don't think it is. At LSU could get kind of weird. I mean, it did last year, and that was a bad LSU team with a fired coach already. They get Auburn, same exact situation. It was close last year. So there's potential there. And I think if they lose one, I don't know if they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game again, and that'll knock them out. 2-loss Alabama, you're gone. So I think I'll take Alabama just for the sake of just you're not really sure what you're getting right now or what you're going to get moving forward. Obviously, they're just going to put in another 5-star stud and under center, and it'll be fine. But you know what I mean? I mean, Bryce Young that's a guy you feel sure you can get there with, and without him, you kind of got some question marks. But
yeah, and this is something we talked about even last week. But it feels like teams 4 through 35 are kind of similar. My top 10 was objectively bad at this point, right? Texas A&M was too close to the top 4. Arkansas was too close. Notre Dame was too close, even though they bounced back with a good win we'll talk about. But, the teams outside of the top 3 have kind of not been good. So there's, I think everyone's top 10 kind of sucks at this point because, all those teams who were kind of secondary teams have already lost, and it's gotten to a point where it's, it's more of the same. I think it's still interesting this year for college football, but it's still more of the same. I don't think anyone had, teams 5 through 12 in a good manner in their preseason rankings at this point.
I agree. I talk about this in different groups. It's kind of the same thing that we think, just like you were saying. Your top 5-ish or whatever it is, very strong. You know what you're going to get, and then outside of that, you're 6 to 35, and it's shown true this season. It's so interchangeable. It is what it is. There's really nobody. There's not too many different tiers there. I mean, there are, but they're not too far off of each other. So, I think you're right there where you know what you have with your top 4, and outside of that, it's kind of question. Which brings me to the next question I was going to ask you. If you had to pick one on the outside of our top 4, who are the top 4 right now? If you had to take one, who would it be?
One team to make the playoff outside of the top 4. I think I'm going USC. And it scares me.
Okay.
It sucks because they haven't really played anyone. Oregon State. I know you love the Beavers, but Oregon State. But the path is just so easy. If they win this week at Utah, they got UCLA as kind of their only big game left. Notre Dame, if you want to count it too, but it's just different. Like I don't know who else you would take. Like all the other teams who could be contenders already have a loss or two at this point, and that's just like we thought Utah would be good. They have two losses already. We thought Oregon might put up a better fight against Georgia. They did not. Like NC State has a loss to Clemson, and they have their quarterback hurt now. So it's all these. Arkansas has 3 losses now. Which all these teams that we thought that would be good, just like I don't know. So I think USC because they're undefeated and because the schedule's not as tough. I think they could do it. I mean, if you want to say Michigan too, because they could just upset Ohio State or lose to Ohio State and still make it, that might be a good option too. But one of those 2 teams is what I would go with, which is very, very chalk.
Yeah. 5 and 7 there. I do want to quickly correct you real quick. There was no "we" about it when we were talking about Arkansas. I did not like Arkansas in the top 10 for anyone.
No.
I thought they were overrated. And so far, so true. It also helps they had an injury to KJ, so
yeah,
who knows what would have happened otherwise. But they've had a tough stretch. I got a big game here against BYU. We'll talk about in a second. But if I have to choose one, it's funny you chose USC because I was going to take UCLA. So I also have a Pac-12 team. Yeah, I know. I think like you said, Michigan's kind of that's who we're supposed to pick. I don't want to do. I want to go outside the box a little bit. To be honest, I haven't been too impressed with the Wolverines, but that schedule eases up a little bit. And if they can do like last year and beat Michigan or beat Ohio State, they'd be the shoe-in. And of course, they're not losing to a Big Ten West team. I mean, in the championship game, that's just not happening. So. No, I like UCLA. I think it's a veteran bunch. You got a good coach there in Chip Kelly, and I love DTR. I've always loved their quarterback. And I think that experience, the veteran leadership, could go a long way and down the stretch and making sure you get these wins. Obviously, your biggest test is this week. You get Oregon on the road. They've done well with ranked teams at home the last couple of weeks, but now you get Oregon. And I think that's a huge test. And I think is that next week?
What game?
I might be getting the Oregon UCLA game. I think that's the following week.
I think it's next week or the week after. It's one of the two, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think they're on a bye, and then they get Oregon. Either way, you have 2 really tough tests. You get Oregon on the road. That's not going to be easy. And then they get USC, which we were just talking about. USC is going to be a tough match. But, it's a little bit of a wild card, but I could see UCLA making a push and getting that 4th spot just with an undefeated season here. So.
No love for the Big 12, no love for Oklahoma State from either of us, which they did not look the greatest this weekend. We'll get to that game too, but I'm okay with that. It's a different year in the Big 12, and I think maybe their best team, we'll get into that too, but might be Texas, who just, with Quinn Ewers is just a totally different team. So, all right, so let's go to the recap of last week, Kyle. We'll start it off with South Carolina beating Kentucky. I want to get this one out of the way real quick because it was a terrible football game. From play calling to, the quarterback play was okay for Kentucky, even with the backup, Kyra Sharon. But, they abandoned the run too quickly. That ended up biting them in the butt, and they lost to South Carolina, who did not look that good. The only phase of the game where I think they truly looked dominant was special teams, and that changed the whole game. Kentucky ran a reverse on the first play of the game to kind of loosen things up for the new quarterback. That ended up in a fumble. It took the life out of the stadium. It took the life out of the sideline for Kentucky. And, it was bad. This is a game they should have won even without Will Levis. I think they would have won with Will Levis, but it doesn't matter because down in the record it goes down as a loss. And now they have I wouldn't say an uphill battle to get bowl eligible, but as an uphill battle to get to where they wanted to be, which is like at least an 8-win season. And it's tough now at this point.
And I think, honestly, if you ask Kentucky fans, 9 wins was really the expectation. I saw a lot with a 10-2 and 11-1, and that was potentially possible. You're facing a very new Ole Miss team as your West opponent this year. You got Mississippi State at home, and you got the rest of the East. You got a dogfight with Tennessee, but outside of that, you just got to maybe make a game with Georgia, and a 10 win is it's doable. The special teams, especially after last week, which I think was kind of funny, because last week against Ole Miss, the special teams on Kentucky was the difference in that game. They were the ones running it all over the place, and I noticed here there was no kick return, so South Carolina was smart on that. And then Barry Brown only had 1 punt return, so I'm sure that played a bit of a factor because that helped the field position a lot a week ago in Oxford. And Kentucky was able to convert. Like you said, if Will Levis plays, I think they win. I didn't think the backup played too terribly well. It was good to see the run game get moving. That was a sign of life finally, outside of that first fumble, of course. And I don't know. Like you said, it's very disappointing because I obviously wanted Kentucky to keep winning. It helps us out, but I thought they were a good team. It sucks losing a player like Will Levis, and then what could have been situations keep coming up. So we'll see what happens in this weekend's game. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mentioned on another podcast I did just with Mississippi State people that it was it's weird that this year like the skill position players were good for Kentucky, right? Especially with Chris Rodriguez coming back from suspension. The wide receivers are objectively better than what they've had in the Stoops era overall. But they don't have the star like Wandale Robinson, but the offensive line has just not been great, and that's what's killed them. And that's going to be a problem moving forward. But when you have Will Levis accounting for 78% of your total offense, it's good if he's healthy. It's not good if he's not healthy. And they got to figure that out for this year. And honestly, for the program moving forward, he's going to go to the NFL draft after this year. They got to figure that out for the future, too. All right, next game up, we have Notre Dame beating BYU 28-20. I think that bye week really helped Notre Dame, Kyle. I know we talked about that in our preview of the game. They ran the ball well. They got the ball to Michael Mayer a lot, which was the key. He's the best tight end in college football, other than maybe Brock Bowers. If you think that's the case, too, that's fine. It's kind of one or the other. Drew Pine looked good at quarterback. And I think what really won this game was the defense for Notre Dame. I mean, BYU scored 6 first-half points. They've got a quarterback in Jaron Hall who's like making first, second-round waves in the NFL draft, and he did not look good whatsoever. He looked terrible.
No, and I wondered just how good BYU is a little bit. We were talking about this, again, in another chat earlier, and kind of not sure about BYU. They had that win against, I believe, Washington, and that suddenly doesn't look very good anymore. And then they get beat by Notre Dame. Not that Notre Dame is bad, but Drew Pine, relatively new quarterback, he did a great job. He looks like he's getting more comfortable. But it's a great win by Notre Dame. It's on the road, of course, for BYU too. So there's that to take into account. But yeah, like you said, just not a lot of offense happening. I mean, it was pretty much all Notre Dame in the first half, and they closed it out nicely. So it's a good win.
Absolutely. I think people I talked about this too, but like overreacted to the Marshall loss. Like, yes, they should never lose to Marshall, but like it doesn't define your whole season when you lose to Marshall. They can still go win 7-8 games and be in an okay bowl game, and things will look good for Marcus Freeman's first year.
Yeah.
Next one up, we have Alabama beating Texas A&M 24-20. Alabama turned the ball over a lot. I think this game kind of was indicative of like Jalen Milroe just not ready to be the starter at Alabama yet. If they had Bryce Young, this might be a totally different game just because of the turnovers. Credit to Texas A&M for holding tough. I think it's easy for a team that had some decent expectations in the preseason to kind of give up, but they fought hard and they had a chance to win the game. They had the ball on goal-to-go situation at the end of the game, and the play by Jimbo was absolutely terrible, a comeback route that ended short of the goal line. But I think overall you feel good with the fight with Texas A&M. The questions about Jimbo persist. Are they going to go 8-4 again? Maybe. Are they going to be worse? Maybe. But Alabama gets the win, and that's the most important thing because I think Bryce Young, I mean, we'll see if he can come back this week, but with getting a win without him, it looks like it might be tough, but in the future, maybe they just want to give the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs more because he had an excellent game.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch the whole game here, so I'll keep it short. But like you said, Jahmyr Gibbs, very good, legit. I was questioning it earlier in the season. He's proved me wrong. He's done it again. A lot of throws for Haynes King. I'm surprised. They weren't long throws, but it's a pretty good game for him as far as a guy that doesn't throw a lot and kind of forced to in this game, and he held up nicely. But yeah, at the beginning of the year, I was very questionable about Jimbo. I was not buying all of his hype. I know, of course, he had that huge recruiting class and everything, but he's just done too little with more. He's not lived up to the expectations. And while you and I on the outside here, we can look at this and say this is a moral victory for A&M. I guarantee you, no one in that fan base is thinking that. They want blood. I mean, this is way closer than myself, or I would say any impartial fan was thinking it would be, regardless of if Bryce Young was playing or not. But like you said, yeah, Jalen Milroe did not look ready. And I've heard Bryce is playing against Tennessee. We'll see. But if not, they're going to have a problem in Neyland. We'll get to that, though. So.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, too, Jimbo's got to evolve this offense, too. He's got to get something going. He has I mean, Max Johnson was hurt for this game, but he has other quarterbacks on the roster, Haynes King and Wegman, who is a good recruit. Like, I hate to say it, but you have that many recruits, you need to figure it out. And this is, people can give him a pass for past years because of quarterback play or just not having his full system at Texas A&M. This year, you had to prove it. 3-3, not looking so good. I mean, if you go 8-4 again, I think the boosters are like, okay, this is the same thing. Let's get going here, and then we'll see what happens. I don't think he's in danger of getting fired yet, but a couple more losses, he definitely could be.
Has the same record so far as Kevin Sumlin, right? So
right, and someone took the job as soon as they went to the SEC, so arguably harder transition too. So we'll see. USC beats Washington State 30-14. I don't think this was too surprising to either of us. Caleb Williams looked not that great. Washington State has a pretty good defense though this year, in what they've done so far, beating Wisconsin. And Washington State, like I said, the tough defense maybe keeps them in this game, but USC just has the premier talent. Travis Dye had a big game with 150 yards and a touchdown. Good win for USC. I feel like I say it every week, but they kind of like keep on proving themselves. This was one of the toughest games they've had, that in Oregon State. So, it's a good win for them.
Yeah, I didn't catch this one. I want to add a lot to that. Like you said, Travis Dye had a huge game, workhorse in this one. Washington State is a fun team, at least this year. That's not a gimme game anymore, I don't think. But I still want to see a little more from USC and see what they have going forward. But like you said, keeping it paint, 6-0. So
absolutely, that's all they need to do. Next one up, we have another undefeated team staying undefeated. Oklahoma State beats Texas Tech 41-31. Sorry, this was a sloppy game for Oklahoma State. It's still weird for me, the dynamic of they were a defensive team last year. Now they're just back to being offensive. All the way through. They score 41 points in this game. Texas Tech has the banged up quarterback position. They've done well with it. I mean, Tyler Shuck was out for pretty much the whole year. He was transferred from Oregon. He was projected to be good last year, and he was hurt. He's hurt this year. They had Donovan Smith, who started for them in the last couple weeks, and he kind of got banged up, and they have Baron Morton stepping in as a freshman to play this game. And he played pretty well, but, just a bunch of injuries at the position. Donovan Smith came in relief of Morton for a couple minutes because he was injured, even though Smith was already injured. It was a whole mess. So good. I think good for Joey McGuire. I know we don't want to make moral victories a thing here, but, keeping it close against Oklahoma State. And for Oklahoma State, I mean, again, it's just Spencer Sanders is the offense here at this rate. They used to have Jalen Warren last year. They don't have him anymore. They used to have a defense last year. It doesn't seem like they have that much of that left. So if they're going to stay undefeated, it's going to be on Spencer Sanders' shoulders.
Yeah, no, like you said, I mean, you touched on it. Texas Tech, it's a new coach there. He's still getting comfortable, and he's had a fine season. They've played, looking at it now, 5 of their first 6 games, technically against ranked teams. They might not be there anymore, but that's a hell of a way to start your college career at somewhere. So they got some easier ones maybe coming up a little bit. On the other side, Oklahoma State has a pretty tough slate. Believe they get Texas in there, and the 2 Kansas schools are going to spend a couple weekends in Kansas, and that's not easy anymore. But I think, like we were talking about earlier, they're definitely favorite for the Big 12 championship game again. Gundy's just keeping that train rolling. It helps for sure that Oklahoma and Texas have kind of bowed out a little bit. You mentioned it earlier. Texas seems to be getting back on track. They're a different team with Ewers, so that's something to keep an eye on too.
Absolutely, they could be right there in the Big 12 championship. They could spoil Oklahoma State's season, whatever they got to do. But it's kind of unfortunate that we didn't get to see Ewers the whole year, because what if they win that Texas Tech game? I think we're talking about them as maybe a dark horse playoff team, which is crazy as it sounds. I mean, that's just how it changes. All right, Tennessee beats LSU 40-13. This was kind of a blowout from the start. I will say Hendon Hooker is a Heisman candidate. He didn't have his number 1 receiver, Cedric Tillman, this week as well. He's missed him for the last couple weeks. And then Cedric Tillman is also, Josh Heupel said that he's not playing this week unless he's 100%. So this is a game that, I think Tennessee proved that they're not the elite of the elite, but they proved they're a step ahead of where they were last year with this win. LSU was a team that was ranked 25th. They've looked good relatively good since Florida State. So it's a big win for them to go into. Now this weekend, they set up the biggest game in their 21st century. Probably not 21st century, but close to the 21st century.
It might be. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. To them, I'm sure it is, but No, this was a shocker to me. I needed to see a little more from Tennessee to see if that is a legitimate ranking, and as of right now, I'm going to have to say it is. I agree with you. Hendon Hooker is not getting nearly enough attention. He is still yet to throw an interception this year, and last year he only threw 3. He's efficient. He can run the ball with his leg. He's good with his legs, and he keeps offense or defenses guessing. Without Hooker, this is a different Tennessee team. I think the heart and soul of this offense runs with him right now. LSU is a mid SEC team. I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. It is what it is. But it's still tough to go in there no matter the time of day in Death Valley and try to get a win. Just not a lot going on offensively. I mean, I was catching glimpses of it, and I kept waiting for something to happen with LSU, and it just seemed like they never woke up or they never got off the bus or whatever it is. Tennessee came in there and dominated from the jump, and that was impressive to watch. So.
Oh, absolutely. I watched the game, and I was like, I'm going to watch this game. The other games might be blowouts at noon, and this one ended up being a blowout too, so it was kind of weird. I will say, as I mentioned, Hendon Hooker, Heisman candidate. I'm going to say C.J. Stroud is still the favorite. I think he's the odds-on favorite. Oh, yeah. But that's because we don't start the conversation at 0, right? Like, if we started at a 0, Hendon Hooker is the favorite. But because Stroud had so much hype coming in, he's the favorite. He's played well, don't get me wrong. He's definitely still in the conversation. But, like, objectively, Hendon Hooker, I think, would be the favorite if everyone was like, the names didn't exist before the season started.
Yeah. He hasn't thrown a pick yet.
Yeah.
We're halfway through the season. I mean, geez.
A long ways to go, but like at the same time, like everyone's like Hendon Hooker's my Heisman favorite, and I'm like that's fine if you want to believe that. The odds-on favorite is C.J. Stroud because of in our minds we know who the Heisman favorites are before the season. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, next one up, UCLA beats Utah 42-32. Dorian Thompson-Robinson throws for 299 yards, 4 touchdowns. And the surprising thing for me, Kyle, Zach Charbonnet runs for 198 yards and a touchdown. Utah is usually this physical team that will not let running backs run for almost 200 yards against them. And maybe that preseason hype was too much for Utah at this point, but UCLA is showing something they have not shown under the Chip Kelly era.
Yeah, remember when Dez had, I think anyway, it was Utah in his Final Four, right?
It was
Utah, Baylor, Michigan, and A&M.
Was it those 4? I think at least the 3, yeah. I don't know if it was Utah in it.
I thought Utah was one of them, too. I know somebody did. I don't know who it was. And honestly, I didn't hate the decision at the time.
Oh, no. He had Baylor. Wasn't it Baylor?
It was Baylor, A&M, Michigan,
and
Utah, right?
Pittsburgh's the one. I just looked it up for us. It's Pittsburgh.
I'm thinking of somebody else. Somebody else had Ohio State, Utah. I think A&M. And then probably Bama or Georgia or something. And that's the one I was thinking of because I thought it was a little shocking they had Utah in there. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it would happen. Utah's not a bad team. I mean, like you said, it's just they aren't living up to these preseason expectations. And DTR had a hell of a game. I mean, that's very efficient. And but you also said that I think the maybe player of the game there is Charbonnet there. That's not, like you were saying, a Chip Kelly way of running the offense. And he was the difference. So...
Yeah, definitely. I think he's, both those guys, DTR and Charbonnet, if they keep on winning, they're both guys that look for a Heisman contention in the future. They haven't gotten a lot of love because they weren't the preseason favorites in the Pac-12, but I think we are going to see some pretty good Pac-12 South matchups. We'll pick one later today, too, just in the future. I think it's a tough conference, or a tough division of the conference, I should say. All right, NC State beats Florida State 19-17. The big news out of this game, Kyle, Devin Leary goes down with a shoulder injury. He appears later on the sideline in a sling. And NC State did not complete a pass after he was out, but they still came back and won the game. They were down 17-3 at halftime, and they come back to win 19-17. I think that says a lot about NC State's defense. I think I saw a stat that they had contacted the Florida State ball carrier like 85% of the time or something before they hit the line of scrimmage, so... NC State's defense deserves a lot of respect. We'll have to see what the injury is to Leary, when he can come back, and if they can hold on to that kind of second spot in the ACC to maybe make a New Year's Six Bowl.
Yeah, I think that depends on Devin Leary, like you were saying. He wasn't doing too well in the game anyway before that, which is another one of those lackluster performances by him that we've seen several times this year. He just comes out flat. But I think they need him back regardless in order to get to that New Year's Six Bowl, which is very much on the table still. Regardless of what happens in the championship game or whatever. But, it's a win. Florida State's not terrible. So
yeah, impressive to win without him, and I think the offensive coordinator is kind of holding them back too. Even when Leary's there, they're throwing a bunch of screens and stuff, and that's not how he won last year. But it's Tim Beck. He's been fired from a couple places before for the same reason. So
is that the old Ohio State guy?
Yep, absolutely. All right, TCU
remember him.
beats Kansas in the game, like one of the best games of the year. I'll be honest. Like TCU goes up in this game. Jalen Daniels goes down with an injury, and Jason Bean comes in. Jason Bean had like formerly just been a guy who just ran the ball, but he's throwing dimes down the field. He's having a good game. And TCU ends up getting the win 38-31. It sucks that Kansas has the first loss of the season, but I think you got to respect that Sonny Dykes has totally changed his offense at TCU. And I will say Max Duggan played pretty well. I'll say that Quentin Johnston, who's like a big draft crush of a bunch of people in the draft industry, hasn't really played well this year, but like he balled out too. He had 14 catches for 206 yards and a touchdown, and an incredible highlight reel catch at the end too. TCU gets the big win. They're now like up there with Oklahoma State in terms of front runners in the Big 12.
Yeah, they are. Quentin Johnson was the only one catching balls for TCU all day. I mean, it was his name again and again and again. This one was very much fun to watch. It sucks that Jalen Daniels goes down. They did a cool little promo and everything with him on game day, of course. Obviously, they do. Where he's always been, he didn't get his opportunity yet, and now this year he's getting the opportunity. He's been great with it. I'm not sure if I'm remembering this right off the top of my head, but he's going to be out for a significant time, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So Jason Bean, I think, is an adequate, fine quarterback. I remember watching him, I'm sure as everybody else does, in that Oklahoma game last year where he damn near got an upset there. And it seems like his passing game's developed even further, which is great to see. I like watching him play too. He's a little shifty. He's an interesting quarterback there. It sucks, like I said, that they don't get Jalen Daniels. But TCU, hats off to him. That's a road game and a very probably the most hostile Lawrence, Kansas has been in 15, 13, 14 years. Like, it's been a long time.
Yep.
And they go in and they get the win. And imagine, I mean, I'm just saying it because, it's Ole Miss and everything, but imagine if they had Zach Evans.
Yeah.
This would be a very, very serious team.
And their running back's not bad, but Zach Evans is just a step above, which,
And you could get a tandem then, too, which, good luck.
I'm going to ask you this now because I don't think we'll have time to later, but I've heard people saying, like, Judkins is, like, the best running back at Ole Miss. And, like, objectively he has been because he has the most rushing yards, but, like, Zach Evans is hurt. So, like, I don't want to say that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to judge him too harshly, but have people say, like, Judkins is better than him. He's run better because he's healthy, for sure, but...
Don't get me wrong. Judkins is a stud, and it's actually one of those few times where the entire fan base and everybody, they blow him up all offseason. They talk about how great he is and how he's going to be this stud, and it actually happens. And honestly, it exceeds your expectations because we all expected Zach Evans to be the guy. Yeah. And then Judkins would be a nice complementary to that. But it's been the other way around. But it's like you said, Evans has been playing with the hip bursitis basically for the whole, last month. I mean, he has not been healthy. And every time we need him to go in and do something, he still runs harder than almost anybody I've ever seen. I mean, he's still a very, very good back. I'd love to see him healthy. I hope we get him back next year. But if not, it's because he did things this year, regardless of the injury, and he's still chugging along. He's still got good yardage. So
yeah, I imagine he's going to go to the NFL draft regardless. He has enough on tape, but he's very good running back, and that's why I was kind of like, Judkins is a freshman. He's playing really well. I think leading the SEC in rushing at least before last week. But Evans is hurt. He's a good running back. He's going to get drafted decently early if he goes to the pros and the medicals and the background. To be honest, checks out. So. Yeah. All right, the next one up, we have Arizona State upsetting Washington. I don't have too much on this game. I wasn't able to watch it too much, but it's just funny that all these teams that fire their head coaches end up getting wins. Like Arizona State's had a couple wins. They upset Washington State. Georgia Tech has 2 straight wins. Nebraska's like sitting atop the Big Ten West standings. It's crazy, and Washington may be a little bit overrated.
Maybe they know what they're doing. Firing the coach was the right move. I don't know. We talked about it. You just said it. I think Washington was overrated, and I think they got bolstered by an overrated win against Michigan State. And they're just, I don't think they're in the top 3 or 4 of the Pac-12. I mean, I don't even think they ranked at the end of the year, to be honest. But it's good to see. Penix didn't have a good game, but I like that he's in a new environment. And seemingly at the beginning of the year, anyway, he did well. But good for Arizona State. I mean, nothing left to play for this year, and here you are winning games again. So. That's fun to see.
Go watch it. They're gonna go 6-6 and make a bowl game. They're not going to. They have too much stuff to schedule down the stretch. But
they only have 4 more wins to go. Let's go.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what I told everyone about like coaching changes. Like I told some friends of mine who are Panthers fans, like I don't know if I would have fired Matt Rule. Like you kind of want to keep losing and get that top pick, But if you fire guys, sometimes teams get extra life. It happens NFL, college, all the time. It just doesn't matter. It just happens.
You also save money, and NFL is like that's the reason you want to just go ahead and hang on to him, because it's like, well, screw it, tank, like whatever.
Yeah. And Matt Rule will be your Nebraska coach in a couple months. We'll be talking about that, I'm sure, but we'll wait till that happens.
Yeah.
All right, the last game we'll recap. Mississippi State beats Arkansas 40-17. Kyle, you called it. Credit to you. I was sticking with my preseason pick, even though the matchup was just not great for Arkansas. Mississippi State throwing the ball. Arkansas's secondary being both bad and banged up is not a good combination. I will say I think Sam Pittman made a mistake in this game. You got to start Malik Hornsby. Yes, he threw 2 picks, but the offense had no life with Cade Fortin in. I think maybe it could have been a different game. I don't think they should have won, but they could have been closer if they would have put Hornsby in sooner. 114 yards rushing. He got the offense moving, even passing the ball deep downfield with a couple of big plays. So good win for Mississippi State. Again, I think Arkansas, this tough 4-game stretch is going to come back to bite them. And the injuries come back to bite them, and the oink-doink comes back to bite them. But at a certain point, you got to show up, and you got to put the best players on the field. And Pittman did not do that to start this game.
This was a beatdown. I wasn't expecting it to be a beatdown. I mean, I thought maybe like a close game, 2 touchdown, maybe a 3-touchdown winner by State at the end, like in the kind of dead time where something happens. This was a beatdown from the start. Arkansas was never in this game. I agree with you. They keep Fortin in there for a few drives. I thought that was strange because obviously he didn't have it. They came out looking flat. They had nothing going. And it just it goes back to kind of my thoughts on this offense anyway. I mean, we'll get to the defense, but the offense, I think it's all KJ Jefferson. It runs entirely through KJ Jefferson. It almost looks like a Dollar General sort of Cam Newton version here, where it's literally just this giant behemoth of quarterback that no one can tackle, and he can beat you with his legs whenever he wants, but also he's got a solid arm. And I think Rocket Sanders is one of the best running backs in the SEC. I'll not stop that one. I think he is terrific. But in a game where you don't have KJ, he's got to just go lights out, and he did. He had a fine game, but it had to be better, and they were also playing from behind the whole game, so what can you do? But good on Mississippi State. They I know from the people I interact with, they really wanted this win after last year. So they're rolling again. Here we go. Mike Leach time.
Oh, yeah. He's one of my favorite guys. So Mike Leach getting the wins. Love the Pirate. Love his interviews. Read all his books. I'm excited for them, even though this week's going to end up being miserable for me. But let's get to it. Let's go to our previews for the week. We're going to start off with one of the noon Eastern games. I should clarify because some people are in Central Time Zone. But Penn State and Michigan in the Big House. Michigan's favored by 7, both undefeated. And, everyone, I've seen Barstool, Penn State's account saying this is a legacy game for James Franklin and for Sean Clifford. And I couldn't sum it up better. You got to win this game if you're Penn State, to get that kind of legacy going. Michigan just kind of trying to ride off of last year still. Haven't played the toughest schedule, but still a lot of talent on that roster.
I just haven't been impressed with Michigan. And they were doing that kind of juggling act with the quarterbacks a little bit, not a lot, but it happened. Blake Corum, like we said, he's great and everything, but I'm a little biased maybe here too, but I'm gonna go Penn State. I want Sean Clifford to go in and get this win in the Big House.
All right, I'm going Michigan. I think the running game has been.
That's fair.
I think the running game has been good. Blake Corum is, not as much as maybe Hendon Hooker, but he's put himself in the Heisman conversation. 735 yards. I honestly thought that Donovan Edwards would cut into his production a little bit, but Donovan Edwards has been hurt. I think that's what they're going to try to do is just run the ball, help J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy is talented, so I will say this is one that I did think about a little bit extra, kind of like you did. Like, if Penn State can kind of get to him, he's still newer as a starting quarterback. He doesn't have that many snaps under his belt, so I did think about it, but just being at home, I think it's going to change everything. If this was at Penn State, I may have gone against Michigan just because of the young quarterback.
Yeah, well, and he uses his legs a lot. He hasn't really been forced to do much through the air. I mean, so I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, Kansas at Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 9 points.
Is Dylan Gabriel back for sure?
I have not seen official word on it, so we're going to be in this nebulous area.
I feel like this is going to be an ugly game. I can't believe the line is Oklahoma -9. I see Kansas covering. Again, I'm a big fan of Bean. I think can fill in fine. But I'm wondering if the magic is out.
No,
I'll go Kansas. I want to see it. Oklahoma's looked bad this year. I think we can all agree.
I actually picked Kansas too. I'm so unimpressed with Oklahoma. Like, that defense is bad. TCU and Texas arguably have some pretty good offenses, especially with Ewers healthy, right? But like, that defense is bad. They hired a defensive head coach. I know that he has some guys on the defense he wouldn't have recruited, and that's kind of what he's said or alluded to at least. But you got to do better than that, man. Oklahoma has talent. Like, you can sit there and whine about maybe your coach left, your quarterback left, but like, you gave up 34 points to Kansas State. You gave up 55 points to TCU. You gave up 49 points to Texas. It wasn't even close. You couldn't get any offense going. I think it's time to start reflecting and seeing what's going to go on. I don't think, this is all on Venables. I think it's how the program was left. But you can't sit there and blame it the whole time either. Like, everyone has transfer portal stuff where people leave, at this point. So, Kansas to win. If you're going to go bet on something, bet on the line on this game. 9 points is a lot for Oklahoma, who has shown no defense over the last 3 weeks. All right, next one up we have Minnesota at Illinois. Minnesota favored by 6.5 on the road. Kyle, we're picking this one because the Big Ten West is up in flux and Illinois is ranked now.
So it's Illinois and who again? Sorry, I was not ready. It's Minnesota.
Minnesota at Illinois. Minnesota's favored on the road. That's for 6.5 points, but Illinois is ranked now, which is unique.
Which is weird.
Yes.
I think I sent you guys a screenshot of like the 20 to 25 or whatever it was because Illinois was in there, and I was like, this is not right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking Illinois. I like what Bert's done there, and I've loved what he's been doing there for a while. I just thought it was going to take some time to really work, and I think they've got it under them now. And I'm trying to remember, they are a West team, right?
Absolutely, yep.
So then, yeah, they're the favorite. They have to be. Nebraska's not. I mean, Minnesota was, but then they got the loss in there. So this probably kind of determines it a little bit. But yeah, I'm going with Big Bert.
Yeah, I'm not one to give gambling advice. Like, I make my picks on the website and everything. People want to look at it, they can. But like, you have the last game, you have Kansas as 9-point underdogs against a defense that's terrible. This game, you have Minnesota going on the road as 6.5-point favorites when Illinois is not showing any, like, they haven't shown that they're worse than any of the other Big Ten West teams at this point. And that's critical to me. Chase Brown is another Heisman contender, 879 yards rushing already, 4 touchdowns. He's got to get the touchdown number up to be seriously considered, but I don't know. I'm going Illinois to win. I know they're an underdog at home. I don't get why they're an underdog. So, all right, next one up we have Alabama at Tennessee. This is the game I think a lot of people are looking forward to this weekend. Knoxville is going to be crazy. Alabama's favored by 7 on the road. Kyle, Bryce Young's status is still kind of up in the air. We're going to hear more about it later as the week goes on here, but that could be a huge factor.
I'm sticking with Illinois. I'm sticking with Alabama until otherwise. You don't go against Alabama. Small spread, but they haven't been covering even coming close to covering recent games, so that doesn't surprise me here. First real test, I think, for Tennessee. I mean, LSU is a test, but they're middle of the level in my opinion still until they show me a little more. So I think this is obviously going to be the first big test. And last year they played them close for a little bit. But I think that just by the end of the game, the talent was there, the depth for Alabama, and Tennessee just couldn't keep up and they ran away with it. Alabama did. So I've got Alabama winning this one. If you told me Tennessee won, I'd be mad, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I'm going Tennessee as much as it pains me to say it. That Alabama game this weekend looked bad against Texas A&M. Like,
yeah, they just look bad. Some of these games where we expect them to run away with it. I don't know.
And I think Knoxville is going to be. Oh my! I mean, you saw it with Lane Kiffin last year, but like it's going to be more nuts because they want this to be a rivalry so bad, and it is a rivalry. But like Tennessee hasn't won in how many years? Like, come on, like.
20? I mean, yeah. It's got to be close to that.
So I think Hendon Hooker's playing well. I will say it to the day I die. I love the way Hendon Hooker plays. I don't care if Tennessee fans insult me after I compliment their quarterback, which seems to be what happens online. But he's really good. Heupel's been doing well. Alabama might have Milroe going in a hostile environment and also with all the turnovers. I think they can kind of focus on stopping the run and get the win. If Young plays, I would probably switch my pick a little bit, but like, the 7-point spread, even with Young healthy, as you said, is just kind of surprising. Healthy too. What?
I mean, he's not going to be healthy though. So if he plays, I don't think he's not 100%. So you still get a kind of an edge there.
Well, that's what I don't understand is because when quarterbacks in the NFL get AC sprains in their shoulder, which is basically what he has from what I understand, they're out like 4 weeks. And this is going to be 2 weeks. So if he plays, you can play through it, but it's tough to play through it. So that's what I'm concerned about.
which I think might even be best case scenario for Tennessee, is if they do make sure he goes out and plays, because he's going to miss throws.
Yeah.
And Tennessee's defense is fine. So, but yeah.
Yeah, also watch the health of Cedric Tillman. He is one of, if not the best receiver in the SEC when healthy. He's the leading returning receiver in the SEC as a senior. He could be huge for that game plan. They've done well without him so far, but if he adds to the fold, we'll see a good matchup between Alabama's corners, who have Eli Ricks, a projected first-round pick, on the bench because he was hurt to start the year, and the other guys have played well against Tennessee's offensive weapons, which are great. So that'd be one thing to watch there. All right, Oklahoma State at TCU. As mentioned, these are the two front runners in the Big 12 as we sit here and speak now. TCU's favored by 4 at home, and it should be a really good game. It's just unfortunate that we have these two games going up in the same time slot.
Oh, there's tons of that. Look at the next one.
Yeah.
It's the entire day. It's a loaded, stacked competition day, but like the 3:30, you are going to need all the TVs you can get. Go to B-Dubs, whatever it is. I've gone back and forth on this so many times. I love the veteran leadership of Oklahoma State, obviously, that with Gundy and everything, and TCU with the newer coach. But Sonny Dykes, he's had it going, and this is his first real big opportunity here at a Power 5 level. I kind of want to keep rolling with him. TCU's favored by 4. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. I don't think this is the one they drop. I think maybe they drop a 1 or 2 later down the road, but I think they show up. It's a big environment, Oklahoma State. Gundy gets them ready. I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
I'm going TCU. Been really impressed with their offense so far. Max Duggan has really kind of fit in pretty well, and Quentin Johnston is absolutely a problem. He's going to be likely a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I think this one is kind of going to be a close game, kind of a shootout here, and fun to watch. I think it does, if they were playing at Oklahoma State, I probably would have picked Oklahoma State. It's just that's how close it is. If it was neutral field, I would have probably flipped a coin. It's two good offenses. The defenses, we'll see how they do. Next one up, we have NC State at Syracuse. Syracuse favored by 3.5. There is no official word on Devin Leary, but the guy was in a sling on the sideline. Everyone that I've talked to who has any connection with NC State says he is out, so that's got to factor into the pick here.
I almost want you to go first, because do you trust in whoever I don't even know who the backup is, but do you trust in him?
He's a transfer from Charleston Southern, and it did not go well in the first game, obviously. I'm picking NC State because of that defense. I think you can just sit on Sean Tucker and stop them. If they stop Florida State, with like I mentioned the stat before, 85%, they hit them behind the line of scrimmage. I think you can do it, but the offensive coordinator, the quarterback injury do concern me. But on paper, I think they should be able to win this one, even on the road.
See, I was leaning NC State. Syracuse really hasn't played anyone, and they've barely won against some not very good programs. And I don't know a whole lot about Syracuse. Obviously, I know the quarterback is, but I think I want to lean NC State here. I think I'm with you on that one. Not confident, but
as ever, we can never. The one thing about college football that stinks is we don't have official injury reports. We can never know who's going to be good, who's not going to be good. It's a problem for this game and a problem for our next game. We'll just go right into it. Kentucky, Mississippi State. This one's at Kentucky. The line has shifted from 7 points to Mississippi State to 4 points for Mississippi State as of 24 hours ago. So maybe Will Levis is getting closer to playing. I know we've heard, Kyle, rumors that you've heard that Will Levis will not be playing, but he is on the depth chart at least. So it's definitely a nebulous situation. We don't know what's going to happen. But currently, Mississippi State favored by 4 on the road.
Yeah, so On3 did the report, I think it was earlier today, that Will Levis is trending towards playing and looks like he's going to be playing. I just had a source that's familiar with some coaches on the Mississippi State coaching staff, and he said that they would not be playing, that Levis is not playing. He had the same report last week against Arkansas with KJ and everything, and so that one ended up working out, and he was correct about that. So I take it with a grain of salt here, I guess. If Will Levis plays, I think I like Kentucky. I think they just kind of rally and get it together. After a very disappointing week last week, and frankly, a disappointing week the week before too. But you get your leader back, and I think that's going to do some wonders. Lexington at night can get weird. I want Kentucky in that one if they've got Levis. If they don't, I don't see how the Kentucky offense is able to keep up with Mississippi State unless the defense comes up in a big way. But this isn't the Kentucky defense of years past. So.
It isn't. I think that's definitely something to note. I'm going Mississippi State either way. I think they cover. Obviously, they could cover even the 7-point spread that was given yesterday if Levis doesn't play. Their offense is high-powered. I don't think Kentucky's defense is going to stop them too many times. Their defense is set to stop guys like Anthony Richardson who can run. They aren't the most accurate passers. Will Rogers is the opposite of that. So I think that's a factor. But Mississippi State's running the ball well this year. They're going to go up against Kentucky, who will either have they'll try to ride Chris Rodriguez if Will Levis is out. They'll probably try to do the same if Levis is in. But then the other dimension of the offense, if Levis is in, is Levis is the offense, right? So if he's on a banged up foot, can he run? Can he throw the ball downfield? Lots of questions I have there. If the offensive line already stinks, I mean, every objective measure, they stink. They have 6 sacks to South Carolina, who ranked 126 in sacks on the year. That's why I'm going against them. I've been told I'm a pessimistic fan in that regard, but at the same time, I just Will Levis will have to do a lot for them to win, and I'm not sure he's capable of doing that, even if he does play. So I'm going Mississippi State either way.
Being realistic and pessimistic is one and the same when you're being objective.
That's right.
No, but turf toe is tough to play with. I think you're right. That is going to hinder him no matter what. And I know they're going to be shooting him up with stuff or whatever, make sure he's not feeling his toe much. But I do wonder how that's going to affect the game. So you're right. Yeah.
The only thing that concerns me about the pick is that every single time the home team wins this game between Mississippi State and Kentucky, it's since 2015, pretty much the whole Stoops era besides the first year, it's the home team. So it's a weird series. It's a weird forced rivalry that I don't think either side really considers a rivalry.
Enjoys.
Yeah, enjoys. It's just a weird game. So I don't know. That's the only thing that concerns me. But otherwise, I mean, we'll see what happens. All right, we have Clemson at Florida State. Interesting one here, Kyle, because Clemson, we've mentioned that we like how they look so far. They look better than last year for sure, and they are only favored by 3.5 on the road to Florida State.
I'm sure Vegas knows something that I don't. They always do. But I'm going Clemson without a doubt. This would be my guarantee of the week of all the picks we're taking. But I went Clemson in this one. I don't think Florida State has what it takes, despite being at home. And I think Clemson's starting to get in that eye on the prize part of the season. They're going to keep going along with this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what Vegas knows, but I'm taking Clemson to win and cover in this one big time. DJ Uiagalelei has looked really good this year. He's a little bit slow still, on his reads. He's still a bit slow, but it looks like they simplified things. We mentioned just the offense in general looks better. I mean, their coordinators left. We talked about Brent Venables being at Oklahoma. Tony Elliott's at Virginia, and Brennan Armstrong, who was a really good quarterback last year, looks really bad. So maybe it was just getting guys out, getting new guys in, and having a new offense here that could help them out. I'm going with them. Florida State, I think, has been better. I don't think they're by any terms back. We talked about them being possibly just a little overrated for what they did at the start of the year. I'm going Clemson to win and cover. All right, the last one we're going to pick here, Kyle, we have USC and Utah. This one is in Utah. Utah is favored by 3.5 points, but USC has an undefeated record going for them.
I have not. I don't think anyway. I don't think I've picked an underdog yet or an upset yet. Against the spread, I guess I have. But as far as rankings go, I think I've gone with the higher ranked every time, with the exception of Kentucky, but that's kind of dependent on the quarterback situation. Yeah. I'm going Utah. I'm doing the upset this time. I think they bounced back after a couple disappointing weeks in the last month, and I think Utah at night and everything. USC hasn't blown me away or anything. I'm not quite sure how much we have there, and I think Utah kind of bounces back. Yeah, they play differently there at night. I swear to God, every time the most exciting games are when they're playing at home at night and stuff. So I got the Utes.
I'm going USC. I guess technically an upset based on Utah favored, but you're right. It's just weird that the rankings are like that, but. USC, I think Caleb Williams has looked good for the most part. He's struggled in a couple games so far. They have talent at running back, wide receiver. The run defense does scare me. That's going to be something where I think we talked about dark horse playoff teams. Their run defense could come back and kill them and hold them back from that. But I think in this game, I think Caleb Williams will be able to get the job done at quarterback for the Trojans. All right, those are our picks for the week. Any final words, Kyle?
So I believe it's the last 3 times Ole Miss has beaten Auburn in Oxford. Auburn has fired their coach that year. So, with Brian Harsin on the hot seat, we can pretty much assume he's gone. Does that guarantee a win? I still have it as a coin flip. I refuse to say that we're going to beat Auburn.
A coin flip? Wow.
We lose to them more than any other SEC team. So I refuse to say we're going to beat them.
I mean, the thing is, the young talent isn't as good, but they have talent on the roster. That's the thing. Bigsby, Popo, anyone. It's just they have talent there.
And they get every turn of luck. They're the luckiest. Every time they play us, they play like an NFL team. It drives me nuts. Bo Nix did it for 3 years, and every time I'm like, how are you having your best game this season against us again? it drives me nuts. So this one, it's 14.5 for Ole Miss right now. I think it started at like 17, and I took Auburn for sure. I'm not taking those points. You kidding me? Auburn might win this game.
You're taking Auburn against the spread. Are you taking Ole Miss overall though? Money line.
I refuse to answer.
Okay. I'm taking Ole Miss to win, but I did take Auburn money against the spread too, because it's one of those things they always struggle with, and I don't know. I think you guys are probably safe, and I do think it means that next week we're talking about another coach who was fired.
Oh, you think it happens if they lose this weekend? They don't even hold on; they just fire him right away.
I think the coach market is moving so quickly that I don't think they would have planned to fire him before the end of the year, but they're gonna want to.
You got to get started.
They're gonna want to start negotiating with agents. We all know that coaches don't necessarily talk with the people, but the agents are already working on next year. They're working on the next move. Brian Kelly with LSU, he didn't hear about the LSU offer. I mean, you can believe this if you want. You didn't hear about the LSU offer until the end of the regular season. A lot of coaches do tell their agents, "Don't tell me anything." But he left after the season. The agent was already working on things. It got done quickly. He got on a jet. He was gone. So I do think they're going to want to get in line for the next head coach, considering how many big jobs are already open.
That's fair. Yeah.
All right. So the only thing I'll say, the last thing I have is just if you're ever going to pick a weekend to just sit on the couch and not do anything, this is one of those weekends. I mean, obviously you have rivalry weekend at the end of the year, like Thanksgiving time and all that, but this is a really good college football weekend. There are if there was a red zone channel, this would be the week that the college football red zone channel would be perfect. I know Matt Miller of formerly Bleacher Report, now of ESPN, said, but this is the year this is the week that you would do it. We have noon time slots. We picked 3 or 4 games. 3:30 time slots. We picked 3 or 4 games. The late slots we had 2 or 3 games. It's crazy. All right, that'll wrap it up for us. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Rate us, like us, whatever you got to do. We'll see everyone next week. Thanks for listening.